Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome back to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. Tonight, we are discussing the future of watch trade shows like Baselworld and SIHH. I discuss my favorite watches beyond the mainstream. We interact in the chat box. All of this, plus your viewer wrist shots on watches tonight. We got Sean on the tech tonight, so shout out to Sean. And of course, the people who pay for these pixels, thewatchbox.com, the best way to buy, trade, and sell with over 2,500 late model pre-owned and vintage timepieces online right now. Videos, prices, spec and tech, all of that. And if you do want to buy, reach out to me directly. Team also at thewatchbox.com. It is the new purchase and pricing email directly from you to me and my hand-picked crew with your questions about pricing and purchase details for any watch you see on our website or on our social media, including YouTube. Reaching out into the box right here, we've got the 95th Phantom. Joining in from Cary, North Carolina, Alan L. Abu Sadiq. We've got W&W, Watches and Wonders, maybe, from Puerto Rico. We've got Edward Ledden of Sweden, Dave Openkar, Thomas Lay from Texas, Richard Combs from South Florida. First in the box tonight, Hale Bop, Blue Shirt Buddha, BNS. And of course, we've got Monkey V, Claudio, our old friend from the boutique, now a major manager at Jacques Dreux. And we've got Xavier N., we've got Agent Feldy, we've got John Doe. All right, let's jump into the regularly scheduled program. First, with your contribution to the collective, viewer wrist shots, your pieces on my pixels. Let's start with Philip of Germany, who is charting the changes with his color-changing Seamaster 2991. You can see the standard dial in blue, and then off to the left, how it has turned a tropical purple. That is a new aging dial effect to me, and possibly a collectible one. Russell K. of the UK celebrates Perpetual Calendar Day 2020 with his Nautilus 5740G, and Kevin C. shares his Invicta Pro Diver Homage, a lovely classical look and a classical wrist shot composition. Love the depth effect with the jeans. We've got Jan N. lighten up our evening with a loom shot. I see Omega Tudor Longines and one more that I can't quite place. Guys, send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your analog on my digital, as I like to say. Jumping into the box, we've got VICQTY from the Philippines, J&W, Omegatron, Karate Chop saying hi, Tim. Hello, Karate Chop. Edward M saying Tim lost his glasses. Nope, I know exactly where they are. They're right there. It's a compromise with management, folks. Work with me. I worked with them. And then we've got right here, Geezer, Rob K. Thoughts on the cancellations? I'm glad you asked that, Rob K. We're going to talk about them right now because one of our own, Clark T, asks, what will happen to SIHH and Baselworld after the 2020 cancellations? A brief recap, and we'll build right up to the present day and this moment because a lot has changed this afternoon. SIHH, a show founded by Richemont in 1991, or the predecessor companies of Richemont, led by Cartier, was canceled for 2020 last Thursday. Within 48 hours, the show, which had been rebranded Watches and Wonders Geneva 2019, was followed by what was termed a postponement of Baselworld. And it's important to note that when you postpone Baselworld till January 2021 and then don't hold two Baselworlds in 2021, that means you canceled Baselworld 2020. All of which is to say, we are looking at one hell of a run on the part of coronavirus. The losers, Swatch's Time to Move event, Breitling's own private exhibition, obviously Baselworld, and the rebranded Watches and Wonders Geneva, which took the place of SIHH. It's also important to remember that since the two shows, SIHH and Basel, were going to be twinned at the end of March, or excuse me, the end of April and the beginning of May, we wound up essentially with no trade shows from last year's Basel until next January. So how much of this is coronavirus and how much of this is smokescreen? I have to think a little bit about this because last year, Swatch's Time to Move event was almost by consensus a bit of an organizational disaster, and it didn't save as much money as Swatch Group had hoped by pulling out of Basel. I should also mention that there were questions about twinning the shows, having both SIHH and Baselworld basically within the same 2-week span. As a member of the media or a dealer, you would have to basically book accommodations and arrangements in 2 separate Swiss cities that, at least by Swiss standards, are nowhere near each other. It was going to be a huge headache. Also, it's no secret that the last real Baselworld was probably 2016, and since then we've seen a departure of brands, the entire Swatch Group, Breitling, Bulgari, majors and minors both, as small as Corum and Bremont and as big as Omega, all of which is to say the shows were already in a precipitous decline, and Baselworld was considered by many to be on the last legs of its relevance. And it's important to note that trade shows, cars, bicycles, watches have been in a major decline. Major auto shows have been rescheduled and canceled. The biggest auto show by attendance in the US is New York. Audi, BMW, and Mercedes just announced that they're pulling out, and they're pulling out of the Detroit show, which has been rescheduled to summer. Reschedule a show. That's the way to tell the world you're in dire straits. Bikes, Interbike, the biggest US-based bicycle industry trade show, has been canceled. Is Eurobike next? Don't bet against it. All of which is to say the model in which vendors go to a show, see the product for the first time, and then place a year's worth of orders has been obsolete for at least half a decade, and maybe even a full decade, with manufacturer stores and boutiques proliferating, full-year model release cycles, and the ability of a vendor to do what we do, which is just to see the new models online and then make a decision. The shows are lacking relevance. So, should we count on seeing them in anything like their original forms? Some brands have already announced a reversal. We are going to get Geneva Watch Days from April 26th through the 29th. It is going to be a scattered, that is decentralized, exhibition by a number of both Baselworld and SIHH exhibitors coming together to exhibit at hotels, company boutiques, and convention centers and hotels. Basically, it's a way of saying they're going to try to have a presence, but this whole thing is so scattershot and last minute, it has every appearance of being a disaster in the making, or very low key. Geneva Watch Days will be for media and they will be for dealers. So if you were booking your trip to Basel and SIHH and you thought you were getting a reprieve for your planned vacation, think again. I don't believe this is going to be open to the public, at least not on an advertised basis. Who's coming back? Well, for one, Gerald Genta, a brand that's been dead since 2010 when it was folded into the Bulgari collective. You might remember in 2010, many Bulgari models inherited from Genta said Bulgari and then the subtext was Genta. The Genta script was gone the next year. Apparently, after the 50th anniversary Platinum Jump Hour by Retrograde last year, Gerald Genta is making a full-fledged comeback as a brand under Bulgari's direction, as Bulgari is the owner of the old Genta manufacturer and its suppliers. What else? Well, we're going to see Urwerk, we're going to see Bulgari, we're going to see Breitling, which canceled its own mono-brand exhibition to exhibit during Geneva Watch Days. We're going to see some smaller brands like de Bethune, Moser, potentially, and MB&F, and also some medium-sized brands like Girard-Perregaux and Ulysse Nardin from Kering, and possibly Chopard. Moser and Chopard currently are in negotiations to show during Geneva Watch Days. I need to further mention that the cancellation of the two big shows and Swatch's Time to Move and Breitling's mono-brand exhibition takes place in the context of an industry under increasing economic pressure. There might be some face saved by Geneva Watch Days, but make no mistake, a lot of the damage is already done. Last year, a full year of Hong Kong protests, which started in earnest back in March, coronavirus in 2020, and drastically uneven performances by the fortunate and unfortunate brands. You might have noticed that amid all the tumult surrounding the trade shows and the broader coronavirus headlines, a small brand, Romain went out of business. Its 33 employees will be unemployed. And this, in a lot of ways, is going to be a canary in the coal mine for the industry as a whole. Whatever you think of Romain, and I was generally not a fan, a lot of these smaller brands are not going to go the distance. And a lot of medium-sized brands within larger groups might be folded the way Oldsmobile and Pontiac and Plymouth and Mercury found themselves folded during the 2000s as the potential to own a large group with many brands and dominate the market vertically shrinks as more and more players enter from more and more non-traditional segments. So I think it's important to note that if you remember the Carré des Horlogers at SIHH, the SIHH as they call it there, I stood there with a member of a well-known watch blog and a member of one of the independent brands last year, and we looked around, and these were in relatively good times, and there were at least half a dozen brands around us in the Carré, which is the square for the independent brands at SIHH, and we both, well, all three of us agreed there's a good chance that in 2 years, half these brands will no longer be here. So is Omega okay? You better believe it. Breitling's going nowhere. It's got equity ownership that wants to sell and make some money. And of course, the IWCs, Jaeger, LeCoultre, and Cartiers of the world are safe. But a lot of smaller brands that don't seem to make sense in their corporate hierarchies or have no reason for being or distinctive clientele. A lot of independent brands that have seen 1, 2, 3, or more CEOs and investor bailouts are not going to go the distance. And I believe what we're seeing with the trade show cancellations and the brand withdrawals will ultimately spread beyond the trade show season and the brands immediately effective. So what will take the place? Well, we've already seen a lot of smaller regional shows canceled. Well, it's tempting to say smaller shows in primary markets. Think Watches and Wonders Miami, Dubai Watch Week, Salon QP are going to take up the slack lost by Basel and SIHH. Keep in mind that Watches and Wonders Miami, Watches and Wonders Hong Kong, and Salon QP have been discontinued indefinitely. So even the local trade shows in primary markets where the watches are sold, no one in Basel is buying watches, by the way. These local mid-sized shows are also under stress. I don't know what the future holds for the industry, but last year was remarkably uneven from brand to brand and month to month. And if I had to bet up or down on the industry going forward, I'd say for the OEMs that have to make these things and sell them through boutiques, the trail is about to get rougher. Let's take a quick look at what you guys are saying here. We got Rick Green joining in from South Texas. We got We've got Amit B joining from Toronto, Canada, and we've got Paul Friend saying hello from Scotland. I have a question from Kevin S. Can you bring back the old studio? This one seems a bit too beige. We're going to fix that. A new studio is in the offing and it's coming here. And then right here we have Tim, are you wearing a suit jacket? No, I'm wearing like a casual type thing that was given to me by my friend Mark Cho of the Armory. This, I believe he calls it his Urban Hunter. And as I like fine clothes and I don't often get to model on the show, I'm strutting my stuff today. And then right here we've got John Doe asking, folding companies, look for the ones that use ETA like Rolex Jerome will get a great discount and most watchmakers can service. A quick note about Rolex Jerome. Most of its movements were supplied by Sellita toward the end. Sellita is now the largest supplier of movements outside of the Swatch Group, and if you discount the ETA movements that go to Swatch Group companies, Sellita is now the largest supplier of customer calibers in Switzerland. There have been some dramatic changes since 2001 when Nick Hayek Sr. started talking about discontinuing ETA's supply of movements to customer caliber purchases. The single largest supplier of customer calibers is now Sellita, and that's where a lot of Rolex Jerome movements came from. But you are right. A lot of brands like that are going to be under stress. I can also see right here, we have one almost saying, Mark S., I hope that's false, gave Watchbox competitive advantage over other channels. Let's see what Mark S. said. I heard they are replacing this with a pre-filmed show. Well, not yet. I am thinking of moving the show to Saturday mornings just to get more views because frankly I found 6 p.m. is a horrible time to go live. Like literally, if you watch the viewership curve on the analytics, it does this at 6 p.m. and me and my crew, we work a big chunk of the day to put this program together, so there's no other motivation other than more eyeballs and trying to get more for our time invested. If you guys like the live show, hey, if you're watching this recorded, tell me in the comments below, because this is a democracy and you guys have a vote. All right, jumping back into the comments right here, we have Abdul R of Germany saying, I think Sellita is doing a great job filling the ETA role, and then Pilot Style 123 Tim, will Rolex release nothing this year, or will they do a different release? Well, everything Rolex was planning to launch at Basel is already done. It takes years to design new watches, all of which is to say those models are ready now. So Rolex is going to have to find some way to roll out its new watches, pun intended, and I do think that because it is so strong and has such control over its dealers, the company's probably going to have some centralized release of press material, and then at the dealer level, there might be rollouts and showings to clients to introduce them to the new models. I don't necessarily think Rolex is just going to buy a hotel room in Geneva and hold its own little Baselworld, but anything can happen, and I can't speak for them. If ever a brand had the pull and the money to do their own thing solo, it would be Rolex, the giant of Geneva. Let's see, as I like to say, your watch is on my box. Viewer wrist shots. Jumping in with Matt G. Matt G of New York in his 1945 co-signed Rolex Bucherer pose in front of the Columbia Sea in Spuyten-Duyvil. Old Dutch New York. And then Randy A. compares American and Russian hardware on the flight line with his Vostok and US F-35 Joint Strike Fighters. Alan H. of New York frames his Omega Speedmaster 300 meter in his local Catskill Mountains. And Bud and his Patek Philippe Aquanaut 5167 1A, rarely seen on the bracelet, take us back indoors with a lovely woodcut backdrop. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com. I can see Valence is signing in from Malaysia, getting up early with us right here. And then we've got Kevin S. asking for more Josh and Jason, more cowbell. I spent a year training both of those guys to work on camera, and it broke my heart when Josh moved down to Florida. Anytime I can get him, I'm pairing him with Jason. I would love to bring back a version of the Trading Desk. I thought it was our most engaging live show. By all means, like I said, you guys have a vote. Vote for the Trading Desk. And if you want to keep seeing this show live, let me know in the comments below. But I would love to bring back Josh and Jason together. Even if we have to Skype them together, I'd love to do that. And then right here, we've got Neck Tarp saying, Tim, my dealer called me with a Hulk. I've been waiting a year. Should I jump on it or see what they release with all the new Submariner change rumors? Look, anytime there's a new Submariner, and I don't know if there will be, but if there is, they discontinue the old stuff, which is to say, if you've got an offer to buy a Hulk at retail, buy it. If you don't like it, sell it. There is no loss here. You either own a great discontinued Rolex that you already know you love, or you sell it and you get on the wait list for the new watch with more cash in your pocket, and you'll probably wind up buying the new watch with money left over, so you'd wind up with a new watch eventually and some cash. I say get the Hulk and enjoy it. Life's too short. And then right here, we've got a question from Rooted Rotor. Is that a Bud the Stud wrist shot? You better believe it is. It was a nice shot by Bud, wasn't it? And we got Britt Head joining in from Fort Lauderdale, and David S. Greetings from hometown Philly, my own neck of the woods. Junior Johnson joining in from Michigan. All right, guys. Main feature tonight, watches I would buy, hype, and resale be damned. Let's talk a little bit about it, because if I've learned one lesson in my 5 years in the industry, it's that the most interesting and most innovative watches generally aren't the ones people are scrambling to buy. 95% of the luxury watch business, even though we hate to admit this as guys who are into tech and engineering, but 95% of the luxury watch business is a fashion business, and it's dominated by just a handful of watches and brands that are subject to insane demand relative to production. They also represent an absolute infinitesimal microscopic speck of what's available, which is to say, as we open our eyes and our horizons, we tend to find watches that are a lot cooler than that stuff. While I love them and they're great, there's nothing wrong with any of those pieces, there are other pieces that are a lot closer to the top of my personal wish list. So, because we do the Rolex, Patek, and Journe thing to death on this channel, and it need not be said, I want to give a quick overview of watches that I like best and would prefer to buy over mainstream watches. These are the watches I would buy to own, not to sell, and because pre-owned is king with these models, I'd buy them used. All of these watches are clever, fun to own, great pre-owned buys, and available with no particular wait or search necessary. So, starting with a watch I think you're going to like because I love it. The 2014 Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch Grey Side of the Moon. This watch had it all. If the dark side was an absolute sensation in 2013, it was nothing but a warm-up for the best of the of the Moon series. Sean, can we go full screen with that one? There's a few details I got to call out. White gold hands and indices. You've got a 44.25 millimeter ceramic case with metallic polished bevels and highlights and satin finish, which is to say they have a sort of plasma arced metallic finish on the polished portions and the satination that you would get on a metal case. So you're not losing any of the detailing, and it's a tribute to Omega's industrial prowess that they can finish this not just like a metal watch, but unlike any other watch with those plasma reflective polished segments. It has a solid platinum dial. That's right, PT950, media blasted with a sandpaper texture, and a bezel and a crown that are fully loomed, so epic loom on this watch. This watch becomes more fun when the lights go down. It also has a feature-packed caliber 9300, automatic winding, 60-hour power reserve, 2 barrels, free sprung, full balance bridge for shock resistance, anti-magnetic silicone hairspring, vertical clutch and a column wheel, and nicely finished for a machine-executed movement. It's also a chronometer. Plus, I will say this watch, this Omega Speedmaster Grey Side of the Moon, is more spectacular on the wrist than a Daytona or a Silver Snoopy 1 or 2. Plus, if you're like me and you've become a little bit worn down by the cycle of purchase, scratch, scuff, and regret, these ceramic cases are almost indelible. Unless you do something stupid like I'm doing with my Zin right now, there won't be a scratch on that watch. That's the miracle of Tegament. But unless you do something stupid and high impact with one of these ceramic Omegas, Omega makes the best ceramic in the business. This will look as new 10 years later when you sell it as it does the day you buy it. Okay, I left a mark on the table. I said there are no marks. I lied a little bit. No marks on the watch. This is an awesome watch. Materially, finish, design, imagination, and engineering. You can't go wrong with it. Omega even gives you a ceramic buckle and pin, where every other company with ceramic watch is going to give you like a blackened titanium or steel clasp. Omega gives you ceramic on the buckle and the pin, so you can scratch it and scrape it and not leave a mark except on your table. Jumping into the box right here, Dave Opencar is saying, Grey Side is you, Tim. I actually agree. I'm very seriously thinking of making this my next Omega. I got the grandpa watch, the graduation watch, and I think this one's next on the list. And then right here, I see Monkey C Production is saying, I wish it were a limited edition. You know, there's always something to be said about making these limited watches. If you want an of the moon that is limited de facto, take a look at the Blue Side Aventurine. Not limited, but they're not going to make a lot of them. And then right here, I have Luke saying, I should have jumped on the Grey Side meteorite dial. It's not too late. The nice thing about these watches is they come up pre-owned and they don't have a damn mark on them because of the ceramic. And refinishing, was it not? That's a non-question when buying these things used. And I see Omegatron is mentioning that meteorite version is sweet too. Boom. Kevin S. saying the Globemaster Connies can be had for pretty good deals. Another great piece of advice. Possibly the best dress watch Omega makes and still rugged enough and water resistant enough to be your sports watch. But if you want a true haute de gamme timepiece, you have to go with my favorite independent. These guys only make Grail watches, 150 of them a year, de Bethune of La Berson, Canton of Vaud. These people, under Denis Flageolet, master watchmaker, create the most exciting watches in the business, and de Bethune is a company that makes watches that inspire the imagination. I think we've got a graphic of the DB25 Starry Varius. This is a watch that came out in 2018, and I can't think of a better alternative to an FP Journe Chronomètre Bleu. Whereas FP Journe will make about 100 Chronomètre Bleu per year, remember, there's only 150 watches of all descriptions from these guys, so figure a few dozen at the most, maybe 2 dozen of the DB25 Starry Varius, and there are micro editions too, as we have a Govberg version of it that was 5 pieces with a full fired blue titanium dial. 42 millimeters, all grade 5 titanium about the case. This is a watch with fixed lugs, a standard crown, a more wearable size. It's for those who, like myself, may love the DB28s, and you know I love the DB28 Digital. That's a timepiece of surpassing appeal. It's got the floating lug design, it's got the jump hour, but at 45 millimeters with a little bit of an extravagant and flamboyant appearance to it, it may not be an all-the-time watch even for me. Hence the DB25. That dial, we need to talk about that dial. Back in 2002, de Bethune patented a method for black polishing and firing titanium to create this blue tone. What you see, the Milky Way band right there, is created by a combination of hammered flake gold and applique gold cabochon, so little beads of gold that are placed. It gets better. You can have it customized. Any location on Earth and any year. For example, my birth year in Mineola, New York, on June 11th, 1984. If I give that information to the folks in L'Auberson, they will create a Starry Varius dial that shows the sky over Mineola, New York on June 11th, 1984. How cool is that? And then there's the Caliber 2005. This is a 6-day manual wind twin barrel movement which involves at least 5 patents to protect the technology involved. Proprietary Côte de Bethune, proprietary twin self-adjusting barrels, proprietary triple parachute shock protection, proprietary titanium and white gold balance, proprietary dogleg kink flat hairspring, proprietary silicon escape wheel. All of this created by their in-house R&D department, which puts to shame any brand of comparable size. Unless you're the Swatch Group, as a group, no one else is filing more patents in relation to its size. And it's all hand finished. If we go back to that full screen for 1 second, you could see that the balance bridge is not only completely rounded, but it is specular black polished, and there is an engraved rose gold plaque with the name and the reference of the watch. That is your Chronomètre Bleu alternative. These retail for about 66,000 new because they do involve a lot more engineering and finishing than a Chronomètre Bleu. But pre-owned at 50 to 55,000, that's right about what people are paying for pre-owned Chronomètre Bleu right now. You ask me which I prefer? I buy my watches to wear, not to sell. Jumping into the chat box right here. Omegatron saying, release it in 40 millimeters and we'd be in business. I'm not sure if you're talking about the Grey Side or the DB25, but there is a 40 millimeter titanium DB25, so you might be in business. And then right here, we have Brick Lane asking, datograph or Zeitwerk, guys? Well, a 39 millimeter dado is going to wear very different from a 42 millimeter Zeitwerk. Now, a dado up-down versus a Zeitwerk, those are more comparable. But I would say get the Zeitwerk if you love engineering and you love blue sky imagination, because while the datograph is historically more important, I find the Zeitwerk more entertaining. So again, I buy the watch that interests me the most. While the datograph was a landmark watch in 1999, it forced soul searching in the house of Stern. There's no mistaking the fact that the Zeitwerk, with its jumping minutes and hours, will put a smile on your face. And if you like flipping the watch, by a narrow margin, the caliber L043 is more impressive than the datagraph's L951. So that's just my piece. You might have your own. And then right here, Richard K. Tim, Glasuta 70s or Pano Lunar? I'd go with the 70s. It's a viable sports watch at 100 meters water resistant, and especially if you get the chronograph with the caliber 39 in it, I think you're getting caliber 37, I believe. You're getting a wonderful movement that is imaginative in all the best ways. It even has a stop-start indicator on the reverse side. So I would say get the 70s, get the chronograph, get it on a full bracelet so you can take it in the water, and then get it with the most extravagant dial you can find. Boom! Right here, we've got a question from John Schrader. Lange datograph versus JLC Duomet. If you're talking about the Duomet white gold, the Duomet. Again, I just think it's a more interesting engineering concept, and in motion, there is no more visually engaging chronograph than a JLC Duomet. Jumping into grand complications. You don't often think of those when we talk about IWC Schaffhausen, but the IWC 3770 was made in 50 pieces a year per medal from 1990 to 2010 before it became part of the Portugueser family. Now, if we go full screen here, you can see what I love about this watch. It's simple, it's discreet. At 42 millimeters in platinum, this is a very special watch. Wearable, comfortable, viable on a small wrist in a way Grand Comps generally are not. Give me the black dial version of that platinum watch, and I am happy. That would be my exit watch, the last one, period, done. minute repeater, a moon phase made of aventurine, a chronograph, a perpetual calendar that is sequentially programmed and adjustable with one crown, plus automatic winding, caliber 79091, 75 jewels, by Renault Papy, pre-Audemars Piguet, the minute repeater, by Kurt Klaus, the perpetual calendar system, by IWC, everything but the 7750 base movement. Throw it in a case designed by IWC design maestro Hanno Bircher, one of the most underrated watch designers of all time, and you've got an anthology of Switzerland's finest names and brands in this one watch. And if you're saying, oh, it's a 7750, I don't want that, don't forget that hand-finished repeater tech on the top and the fact that a 7750 has 25 jewels, this has 75. This is an in-house movement that just happens to be based on the 7750 winding architecture and train spacing. Go with the full bracelet for shock and awe. But I prefer the strap for its discretion and comfort. This is a bulletproof grand complication, and these can be finicky things, so the chance to buy one that is absolutely workmanlike reliable should not be passed over if you're in the market for this sort of thing. You're talking about a grand complication for used 5711 steel Nautilus money. And you're getting it from a brand that will be around forever to service the timepiece. All of which is to say, for about $70,000, I don't think you can get more watch. Or a more significant watch. Now, Rolex, but not the usual suspects. You guys know I love the Cellini Prince. This is a watch that came out in 2005 and ran until 2014. New, these retailed for a lot of money. They were Rolex's flagship at $15,500 for yellow gold, right up to $17,000 for white gold. Today, pay between $7,500 for yellow gold and $9,000 to get the best full box papers and invoice white gold example. Why love this watch? Because this is a timepiece that is rare, that is an exception in the house of Rolex. It's not like any other Rolex watch, and it's a very important historic first. Let's talk about this. My favorite version first, yellow gold. It has a pyramid-style guilloche hobnail dial, all of which is to say it's one of the few similarities between any Audemars Piguet and a Rolex watch. But this one in gold is completely different, with staggered, tiered teardrops on its flank. Now turn it over. A spectacular pyramid guilloche dial and a matching movement under a sapphire caseback. This was the first series production Rolex to have a display caseback, and you can see the splayed Art Deco streaks of the flank of the case that I was describing. The same pyramid hobnail on the movement, caliber 7040 with a 3-day power reserve, chronometer certification. It's all Rolex, down to the overcoil hairspring and even the shock protection. Paraflex, Rolex's own. 3-day reserve, chronometer certification, visible and beautiful. It's one of the few Rolex movements that's both sized and shaped, as well as created to be seen. Size is excellent. These watches are 27 millimeters wide, 44 millimeters from lug to lug, and 9.3 millimeters thick, which means they're thinner than any Rolex sports watch, and they slip right under a cuff, and they're wearable on any wrist. And again, getting a yellow gold model for $7,500, this is a ton of watch for the money. And if you ever have concern about brand equity or recognition down the path, obviously sometimes we will sell. At the end of the day, this is a watch that has a lot of upside potential. As people realize how unusual they are, I think the pendulum is going to swing in the other direction. So while I would buy this watch because it's significant and cool, of the watches we're discussing tonight, this one probably has the most potential to be someone and something down the road. Plus, it's a freaking exotic Rolex. How often can you pair those two terms? Jumping into the box, we've got Lucien D joining in from Bucharest, Romania. Thanks for staying up late in continental Europe with me. We got Kevin S saying, how about the JLC Master Calendar? Definitely. Especially if you're getting the steel with the meteorite dial, you're getting a hell of a lot of watch pre-owned. And if you go back earlier to the 37 millimeter steel version with the black dial, you're getting my personal favorite and a watch that I owned, that old Master Calendar with the black dial and the steel case. And also right here, we have Nectarp saying, I would rather have a reverso if I'm going for that case shape. That's fair, but they do offer very different looks, feels, and brand character. Gégère Lecoul, since we're speaking of the reverso, I'm coming home, guys. This is where I started, and it's where my heart still lies. But back in 2006, JLC stunned the world with a chronograph like none other. After warming up with an Amvox alarm for its collaboration with Aston Martin, JLC blew us all away with a vertical trigger, pusherless chronograph. This is a watch, 44 millimeters in titanium, blackened titanium, or platinum. All three were limited edition, and it's a watch that effectively was the antidote to the appalling car watch co-brandings. There's the Blancpain L Evolution for Lamborghini. Well made, but not my thing. You can see a few things have gone wrong, starting with the cockeyed Arabic numerals. But unlike that miscarriage of art, this was organic, with the Amvox actually drawing on real history. That is a Jaeger instrument in an Aston Martin 1950s Le Mans racer. That's what Carroll Shelby would have seen as he and Roy Salvadori drove to victory in 1959. So this is no shotgun marriage. Aston Martin and Jaeger have a long history that ran from the 20s through the 90s, and the Amvox 2 was the best of the breed. An innovative pusherless chronograph. There were no triggers on the side of the watch. You tap it at 12 o'clock to start, you tap it at 12 o'clock to stop, and you tap it at 6 o'clock to reset. The idea being that pushers are tough to use with racing gloves, so whether you're a player or a fan, this is a watch that makes a lot of sense the way people use their chronographs during the hazy hours, the wee hours of 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. and the faint red glow at Le Mans and Daytona. This is a watch that was so innovative that there was nothing like it at the time and remains nothing like it today. And if it said Richard Mille on its dial, it would cost deep into six figures. You're getting a solid movement. Manufacturer, of course, caliber 751, automatic winding, 2 barrels, 65-hour power reserve, column wheel, and a vertical clutch. All of that in a watch that still looks damn fine, and even on my spindly wrist, my Amvox 2 wore great. This is a comfortable piece, and the feeling of that ball bearing pivot, and it does pivot on ball bearings, is unlike any other chronograph experience, even as good as they can be, the likes of Zenith and Longa. This is an entirely experience removed. Also, you can see, if we can go full screen with that shot, this experience removed features a slider so you can lock out the chronograph if you want, so you don't accidentally fat finger a reset while the chronograph is running. You can enjoy this watch, I must say, even if, like me, you don't yet have an Aston Martin in the garage, and that is my future Aston Martin Vanquish S. I will hold out for a 2006, even though 2005 was the last US model year, but I will hold out for a 2005 when the time comes. All right, jumping into the box right here. Pilot Style 123 saying, if you like this watch, I forgive you. I'm not sure what the antecedent was, but I think it might have been the Cellini. And then right here, we have Aunt G asking Tim. Oh, but we've got Butkick1 saying, greetings from Poland. Thank you for joining me from Poland and for staying up late in Central Europe with me. We've got Edward Ledden of Sweden, also in Europe, up north, saying the Amvox 2 is the greatest of all time. And you are right. There's nothing like it. I loved mine, and it was the JLC through all of them, and I owned 10 at one point, that got the most wrist time. And then we have Mark S. saying, Tim, Ford versus Ferrari didn't make me weep, and I can be a softie. I said it almost brought me to tears, but damn close. I still recommend that movie. If you love cars, if you love watches, if you love history, if you love racing, if you love a good movie, check out Ford versus Ferrari, my only ever mini review. And then we've got a question right here. Tim, this is from Bousser. Would you rather have a Rolex Daytona or a Triumph Daytona? I would probably take the Rolex Daytona just because I have some leg injuries, and at this point, I'm saving my bullets for the bike. If I wound up trying to catch a slide or catch a fall on a motorcycle and holding up 400 pounds with my knee, and I damaged it and couldn't ride my bike, I'd never forgive myself. Now, if you're asking me, would I prefer a Rolex Daytona or a Moto Guzzi Daytona? Crippling injury, badass bike. I don't know. Okay, and then right here, we see Eddie Kim saying, does that JLC feel like, what does it feel like when activating the Chrono? It feels as sharp as a rifle bolt. Real good watch. And then I see Java Cycle 911 saying, Breguet, a fantastic buy used. Absolutely true. Steel with a blue dial, or if you can, the Type 20, the 3810 PT from 2003, the 90-piece platinum dial. That is the one to own. Finally, because we love this brand, and somehow I didn't give it a shout out, there are many Zenith watches that I love, but the Zenith Chronomaster T from the 1990s through early 2000s is probably damn close to the perfect watch. 40 millimeters, black dial, those silvers available, triple calendar, moon phase, Zenith El Primero, COSC chronometer. This is a complete calendar with soul. Awesome case profile with a fluted bezel and lugs. You got a little bit of guilloche with applique Roman numerals to keep the dial upscale. And as you can see, a triple calendar dating back to the original caliber 3019 PHF from 1969. 50 hours, 10 beats per second, automatic winding, column wheel, sharp as a rifle bolt. As I just said, this is column wheel feel to rival the best from Lange, Rolex, and Jaeger-LeCoultre. And it's a watch you can buy for $5 grand. You don't find too many chronometer certified high beat El Primeros. Most of them wound up as Rolex Daytonas. This is the full fat high beat Zenith El Primero in Zenith's own case. And this is a classic watch now. Is it going to make you rich? No. But there is not a watch meetup the world over at which this will not draw knowing nods and smiles. This is pure fun with your watch. And that is, again, my last of the buy to own, not to sell timepieces tonight. Let's take a look at yours right here. Corey L. of California. Your wrist shots. Corey, I love what you're doing right there. A domestic dive with the dishes and his oil-filled Zin UX dive watch. That's right. Resence does not make the only oil-filled watches, and for a while Zin made a version of this for Bell & Ross. Go with the original. Ryan G. catches the sun's final rays with his Royal Oak at Hong Kong's Victoria Harbor. Beautifully composed. That might be the shot of the night, and it's not even on a wrist. Mike P. of Omaha, Nebraska, in America's heartland, is far from the sea with his Tudor Black Bay diver. And Anthony O. of Adelaide, Australia, and his Habring Irvin Jumping Seconds Time Zone 21 edition set our sun for this evening. Remember, guys, if you want to buy a watch you see on Watchbox Reviews, my Instagram, or thewatchbox.com, email me. tmasso@thewatchbox.com, your purchase and pricing inquiry line to me and Brandon. We're the only two people who field these incoming emails. And then finally, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com. As I said, this is a democracy. I'm not going to get the views, but if you want me to keep it live at this time slot, you're going to have to tell me in the description below, because I'm thinking of moving this thing recording to Saturday morning, and that would get me the views, but I would lose that rapport I've got with you guys, and I'm really conflicted over this. Comment and subscribe, and remember to follow me, Tim_Masso on Instagram. Help me to hit 50K in 2K20. Guys, thank you so much. Thanks to Sean tonight. He was nimble on the switcher. Time out, Tim out, and thanks for logging on.